Tonight on One News, a cabinet leak reveals a controversial Māori policy is shelved. The ACT Party's plan for referendums over Māori wards and local councils is put on the back burner. But the PM says the coalition parties are in step. Whiteout in central Auckland as a second rainbow crossing in a week is vandalised. Locals vow the rainbow spirit won't be dampened. And the long weekend shopping hours under fire. Should it be an open and shut case when it comes to Easter retailing? No Maiki karere tahi tēnei pō. Welcome to One News this evening. A controversial plan to hold local referendums on Māori wards has been put on the back burner. That's according to a cabinet leak to One News. The policy is part of ACT's coalition agreement with National, but as political editor Mikey Sherman reports, David Seymour's adamant he's still on track.
The ACT leader insisting it's all good, despite revelations his referendum policy on Māori wards has been put on ice.
Cabinet's been discussing that, but because Cabinet's a bit like Fight Club, first rule is you don't talk about Cabinet.
But someone is talking about Cabinet. A leak to One News reveals two options were tabled with ministers on Monday this week. Option 1, pushing go on the referendum policy. Option 2, pushing it out to a later date. They chose option 2.
I don't engage with leakers or leaking. I'm confident in trusting the process.
I think we have a public service at times has been leaking information that is unacceptable.
David Seymour rejecting his policies being delayed.
So for you to spuriously speculate based on what some little birdie's told you.
Arguing on a technicality.
And as far as I'm concerned, there's no particular timings in the coalition agreement. So it's hard to delay something that didn't have a specific time.
ACT's policy would mean poll referendums on Māori wards would be back if 5% of local voters requested it.
Returning to a referendum or a poll on Māori wards, I feel is unfair. Is unfair for those Māori communities and also to the councils who have decided to have Māori wards.
There are now 35 councils with Māori wards and a further 13 will be established next year. ACT's plan means most of those would need a referendum at a cost to ratepayers.
Taupo had a poll back in 2020 roughly and it cost nearly $100,000.
Tony Boynton is a Māori ward councillor in Whakatane.
I suppose I'm glad it's not happening right now. But the fact that they're still going to look at it isn't too good.
When people have an opportunity to vote in referendums on Māori wards, they vote against them, and in big numbers.
All three parties in the coalition government have the same position, and all we want to do is actually see it revert back to the situation that it once was.
Until then, Christopher Luxon has a bigger problem, leaking.
I'd just say to you, we've had a number of leaks that have come out through the public service. It's not a big one, but not a biggie. We're not particularly losing a lot of sleep about it.
Not yet perhaps, but give it time.
All right, Mikey, how worried should the Prime Minister be about the leak?
Despite Christopher Luxon there in my story suggesting that perhaps this leak came from within the public service, unfortunately for him it did not. It came from much closer quarters, and that will send a shiver down the spine of any Prime Minister, but particularly perhaps Christopher Luxon, who prides himself on being a manager, a leader of what he calls a high-performing team, and he'll know that part of that, key to that in fact, is discipline, and once you start losing discipline, that is when you start losing sleep. Now, as for this policy, it comes as no great surprise, perhaps, that the government decided to push a delay on that because it does not want to get bogged down by another race debate. Christopher Luxon, he spent much of the start of this year facing that sort of controversy when his government was facing the ACT Party's Treaty Principles Bill, and he will not want to get dragged back there on ACT's referendum for Māori seats on local councils.
Kia ora, Mikey. Thank you for that. The Ministry for Pacific Peoples is the latest government department to announce its plan to axe workers. Senior political reporter Benedict Collins joins us now live with the details. OK, Benedict, what's the plan?
Well, these cuts are being described as brutal. Up to 40% of the jobs at the Ministry for the Pacific Peoples could be slashed under this proposal. And what we have to remember here is that this ministry is really small to start with. There are only about 150 roles there to start with. About 60 of them could be going here. Now, the union, the Public Service Association, they said the Ministry for Pacific Peoples, it acts as a really important bridge between Pacific communities and the government. And they said Pacific communities are going to be really hard hit by this.
As you reported yesterday, a number of former National Party politicians recently appointed to new jobs by the government, and a development today?
That's right. The national government, or the coalition government, they've been going around and tapping some of their former colleagues on the shoulder and appointing them to roles. Now, today the government has told me how much they're being paid. First, there's Murray McCulley. He's been appointed to lead a review into the state of school buildings. Now, he will be paid $2,200 a day for this work, but the Minister's office told me this is in line with Cabinet recommendations, Cabinet guidelines, and also previous appointments. They also pointed out that this would be a part-time role. Now, Sir Bill English, former Prime Minister and former National Leader, he's been appointed to carry out a review into Kāinga Ora, particularly around the levels of debt it holds. He will be getting paid $2,500 per day for this work. And then there's Stephen Joyce, former National Cabinet Minister. He's been brought on, he's chairing a panel that's basically looking to set up an infrastructure agency. Now, he will be paid $4,000 per day for this work. I have been talking to some people around here at Parliament. They can't remember a daily payment quite that high. Now, we did ask the Prime Minister today what he thinks public servants think when they're facing job cuts and they see the national government appointing their former colleagues to these roles. He said the two issues should not be conflated.
Benedict, thank you very much for that. A man and a woman have appeared in court this afternoon after two Lower Hutt children were hospitalised with horrific injuries. Last week, detectives made a public plea for witnesses to come forward. Sam Ollie was in court.
The 25-year-old man and woman face a range of charges dated between January and March this year. Among the charges, the man is accused of wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, willfully ill-treating a dog, and attempting to pervert the course of justice. The woman is also accused of attempting to pervert the course of justice, as well as 2 counts of failing to protect a child. In court, people in the public gallery cried when the man stood in the dock. Both he and the woman have pleaded not guilty to all charges. They've been granted interim name suppression and have been remanded in custody to reappear in May. This comes 3 weeks after the siblings were hospitalised with what police have described as deliberate and horrific injuries sustained over a long period of time. Both children had broken bones and extensive bruising, and one child had brain bleeds and severe internal injuries. Today, police say the children are recovering and are safe.
Police are calling a paint attack on a central Auckland rainbow crossing a hate crime. It's the second in a week to be hit by vandals. Again, it was painted over, but this time it's not yet clear by whom. The damage bill's set to be thousands of dollars. Kim Baker-Wilson reports.
The rainbow hues looking worse for wear. Overnight, smothered in paint. Another rainbow crossing targeted and vandalised.
Yeah, it's not good. Just leave us alone.
This is a bloody nonsense.
Earlier this week, it was Gisborne. Destiny Church members painting over the town's crossing. It was painted rainbow again.
We have the right to protest.
And then, several arrests after protesters returned. Police say in Auckland it was 3 people pouring the paint, their faces covered, their number plate hidden. Now, a police appeal to find out who they are.
Yeah, I don't want the police tied up with that sort of nonsense. So my message is whoever's doing that should cut it out.
You know, it's really hard just to even just go about my day sometimes when this rise in hate is happening.
This paint attack and this crossing in the heart of Auckland's rainbow community.
This is like a bit too close to home, seeing this kind of thing happen. This isn't just a road where I come for a coffee or go for a drink in a bar. This is actually my second home, and it's second home to a lot of queer people.
And we'll clean up this splash of paint, and I think that those antagonists can expect to see that the love, the support and the celebration for our community will return tenfold.
It was water-based paint, so much of it washed off in the rain.
That's what happens with water-based paint. It does mix with water and it's raining. And I suppose another concern for me would be the environmental damage that something like this could cause with the paint ending up in our waterways.
There'll be a proper clean-up tonight. The damage could cost tens of thousands.
Bring us right up to date, Kim. What's the latest in the police investigation?
Simon, it's a search warrant launched today in the South Auckland suburb of Flatbush. That was at an address that police think was linked to the car that they think was involved in this vandalism overnight. Police didn't find the car and they didn't find anyone they were looking for, but they did find several items of interest, and those items have been seized. Brian Tamaki at Destiny Church doesn't appear to be saying or confirming either way whether Destiny Church is involved in what happened here overnight, but he did put up an opinion piece online today where he said that this is only the beginning. As for what happens here next at the crossing itself, Auckland Council staff will be coming in tonight. The road will be closed for a time. Council workers will then get as much of the paint off as they can. It goes right down the road, and then they should have a much better idea of how much damage there is and a much better idea of how much it will cost to fix it.
Tēnā koe, Kim. Thank you for that. In a couple of days, the measures the government hopes will address the cost of living crisis are set to be rolled out. Included among them, from April the 1st, a couple with kids on job seeker support get an extra $56 a fortnight. Single parents will get an increase of $44. Overall, around 1.4 million Kiwis will get some sort of relief. That includes around 900,000 pensioners. A couple getting super receives $71 more a fortnight. A pensioner living alone gets $46. The student allowance is also increased, with those under 24 living away from home getting an extra $28. And the government's got itself offside with several universities over whether providing designated study rooms for groups of students is a case of segregation. Simon Mersip's been looking into this. How did it all start, Simon?
Simon, this started with a social media post this week, that's what students tell me, which criticised Auckland University for offering designated study rooms for Māori and Pacifica students. The post said this was racist and segregationist, and government parties picked up on this. New Zealand First said it was comparable to the Ku Klux Klan. Here's what ACT said today, followed by the Prime Minister.
I believe that is segregation on the basis of race, and that is not acceptable. What we are doing is taking away that opportunity from students to learn about other cultures.
A university should be a place of embracing diversity and being highly inclusive environments, and so it was pretty disappointing to see that yesterday.
How have students reacted to this?
Well, several students have actually told me that since this post came out, they've been subject to online abuse. A couple did agree to speak to me today with their identities protected. Here's their view of these designated study rooms.
For them to be able to go and study, rub shoulders with each other.
If I wanted to come and join you in the room, would you let me?
Of course we would. It's not a space where we actively try to get rid of anyone else. It's just a space for us to come together, to enjoy each other's company and to celebrate our cultures.
All right, give us some context on this. Is Auckland University the only university offering this?
Not at all, no. AUT, Waikato, Massey, Victoria, Otago, they're all basically offering similar sorts of rooms. And essentially they're saying it's a way of recognising the needs of a diverse student population. It seems that this policy has been around for some years, and what I'm being told is that everyone's welcome to come to these rooms.
What's the legal situation? What does the law say?
Yeah, well, I went to the Human Rights Commission on this, and they say that while these so-called special measures might appear to be discriminatory at first, sometimes they're needed to ensure equality for disadvantaged groups. And the Commission says this is actually recognised in both the Bill of Rights Act and the Human Rights Act. So tonight, the ACT Party is saying that there's no place for this type of policy, but I've got to say from the universities I've spoken to, they're all in favour of it, and some say they're proud of it.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Simon. Kia ora. The Kermadec Ocean Sanctuary was officially scrapped today after the coalition government decided to stop work on the proposed reserve. It would have become one of the world's largest marine protected areas. The plan was announced in 2015, but it stalled multiple times. Minister for Oceans and Fisheries, Shane Jones, says the Kermadec Islands are already well protected.
The Kermadex has inordinate potential, and we should take stock of what are the other uses to which the Kermadex can be dedicated to in the future.
Iwi, with fishing rights in the area, had opposed the sanctuary. E whaiakene coming up, 2 bodies are recovered after a cargo ship smashed into a bridge in Baltimore as police get hold of critical equipment that could reveal the cause of the collision. And a bad report card for Kiwi school students, among the worst behaved in the world. So what exactly are they doing wrong? No mai hoki mai. Bad behaviour in our classrooms is increasing, according to teachers. A new report of OECD countries found in maths classes, New Zealand students display the lowest standard of behaviour of all. In English, we're among the bottom quarter of the ranked countries. And teachers report behaviour's worsening, with 74% saying it's deteriorated in the last 2 years. Less than half of all new teachers say they can manage the students' behaviour, and 68% of teachers surveyed believe disruptive behaviour has an impact on student enjoyment in class. The situation is worse in larger schools, where 75% of teachers say they see challenging behaviour each day, compared to 65% in smaller schools. With a look at the impact it may be having on kids in our classrooms, here's Kate Nicol-Williams.
An unwanted title in education, our students behave the worst in maths out of all OECD countries.
There's been changes in society, there's been changes in how children experience the world, and these things are all colliding in schools.
An investigation from the Education Review Office has laid bare just how big the behaviour problem is. More than 2,000 staff were surveyed.
Half of teachers are seeing some disorderly behaviour in every lesson, and a quarter of principals are saying every day they're having to deal with damage to property or hurting other students.
Other poor behaviour includes children not listening, device distraction, and the teacher having to wait for the class to be quiet.
So you've got kids in classrooms who are not achieving, can't read, can't do mathematics, and quite obviously, I think, playing up.
Parents at this school said the report reflects the flow-on effects of tough times for society.
The class sizes are big, but the government could, invest in more teachers, but where do you get them?
The more help for families, with, kids out there, the better off that, the family household would be, and also for the children as well when they go, into the classroom.
The recommendations include creating a national approach to poor behaviour with guidance for every school board, reviewing school sizes with behaviour in larger schools more of a problem, recruiting trainee teachers who are more mature when they start work, and increasing specialist support for students like educational psychologists. NZEI Union says the education system needs major investment, not a band-aid approach. It wants to see the government create a 10-year strategy to fund more learning support.
It's going to be on us to make sure that we are getting really good value for money and that we can redirect a lot of that resource into areas that are making a real difference.
Schools crying out for help, with bad behaviour now firmly in the spotlight. Kate Nicol-Williams, One News.
Theories are emerging over what led to a colossal container ship destroying a bridge in the US city of Baltimore. 2 bodies have been found in the water as work gears up to find out what happened and get the critical port back up and running. US correspondent Logan Church reports.
Lying in limbo, the Dali and the fractured remains of the Francis Scott Key Bridge after the container ship, 100,000 tonnes of it, hit it at speed. Today, bodies are being pulled from the water. 2 found trapped in a truck.
Divers located a red pickup truck submerged in approximately 25 feet of water in the area of the middle span of the bridge.
They were in a team of construction workers on the bridge. It's believed this footage shows their flashing lights on the right minutes before disaster struck. 6 people all up, now presumed dead, including Mena Suazo from Honduras, who was fixing potholes, remembered today by his brother.
He became a fundamental pillar of our family, a bastion so others could travel over there and get visas and everything. He was a driving force for all of us.
The broken bridge blocking off access to the port of Baltimore, a vital artery for the local economy.
And we're exporting product to South America, the Far East, Europe as well. We can't ship anything out right now, so the exports have been shut off.
The Navy now using heavy cranes to get the channel open. trade flowing, and around 8,000 dock employees back to work.
I think the main challenge here is, as you can see by the imagery on scene, is removing those large trusses and steel members off the bow of the ship. Once that happens, we'll have the underwater survey complete in terms of how that vessel is connected to the bridge pier.
The recovery, the investigation, and the rebuild won't be fast.
The original bridge took 5 years to construct. That does not necessarily mean it will take 5 years to replace, but that tells you what went into that original structure going up.
More details are emerging about the ship's condition, with reports it had major electrical issues in prior days. Investigators are also looking at whether contaminated fuel played a part. But for the people of Baltimore and the entire country, the big question is how can they recover from this? Logan Church, One News, New York.
To the Middle East, where Israel's Prime Minister has brushed off US concerns over an imminent ground invasion of Rafah, Gaza's southernmost town. Benjamin Netanyahu told an American delegation in Jerusalem that people can just move with their tents to flee any fighting. Israel wants boots on the ground in Rafah to wipe out Hamas fighters it says are hiding out there.
Victory is within reach. It's a few weeks away. Now we are told, this is it, last point. Now we are told, you can't do this. If you go into Rafah, you're going to have a humanitarian catastrophe.
The planned forays raised concerns because Rafah is now home to 1.4 million Palestinians, the majority of them escaping fighting in other parts of Gaza. Fiji's former Prime Minister has escaped jail time after being found guilty of interfering in a police investigation. Vorenki Bainimarama was facing up to 5 years behind bars for attempting to pervert the course of justice. But at sentencing, the Suva magistrate called his charges trivial and cited recent poor health in granting him an absolute discharge with no conviction. In 2019, Mr Bainimarama had ordered the now suspended police commissioner to stop an investigation into financial mismanagement at the University of the South Pacific. The magistrate handing Sitiveni Ngilio a small fine for his part, also with no conviction. Appeals have been filed against the sentences for both men. Muriakene. Coming up, when Good Friday isn't good for everyone, why Easter trading laws are so varied and confusing, and the arguments for and against relaxing the rules.
Today, we celebrate the start of the Māori television channel, a new era in broadcasting.
Hari huri tau, Māori TV turns 20, the vital role it's played and the challenges that still lie ahead. Hoki mai anō, welcome back. The often polarising Easter trading laws are back in the spotlight again on the eve of Good Friday. ACT is pushing for them to be abandoned. Religious and union leaders aren't sold on the idea. Lisa Davies looks at both sides of the argument.
The population of Wanaka is about to skyrocket. But its supermarkets aren't allowed to open on Good Friday and Easter Sunday.
Get with the age. Things need to be open, and particularly here in Wanaka. I mean, this town absolutely explodes with people at this time of year.
Last year, the two Wanaka supermarkets were fined for flouting Easter trading laws.
I think there's a bit too much government overreach, so I think having the freedom to do what you want is really important.
ACT agrees and is hoping to end the restrictions through a private member's bill.
I really hope that the bill can be drawn and progress through the House in time so that New Zealanders can enjoy Easter the way they want to in 2025.
But unions say a law change would mean workers would lose 2 of the 3.5 days they're currently guaranteed off. That's Easter, Anzac morning and Christmas Day. And they say that's appalling.
It's another attack by this current government on workers. The only thing they seem to hold sacrosanct is the pursuit of profit over the welfare of people.
Religious leaders saddened the long weekend is under threat again too.
I guess when I read about this, I groaned. I thought, here we go again. It's coming up every year. It's coming up every holiday break. But often what we're forgetting about is people and families.
But those who benefit from exemptions to trade normally in Tauranga say there needs to be a more uniform approach across the country.
I just think simplicity, it'd be good for our traders still to have the option.
It's an issue that makes many feel conflicted.
I like being able to go and buy things when I want to, but I think people need time off. Get get with the time.
Once again this Easter, the debate continues. Lisa Davies, One News.
Hari huri tau rua te kau whakaata Māori. Happy 20th birthday Māori TV. 2 decades ago today, Māori television's first broadcast went to air, bringing te reo into prime time. Now called Whakaata Māori, those there in the early days are celebrating its groundbreaking shows as they also keep an eye on the future. Jacob Johnson reports.
Ho mai te paki paki. A Friday night favourite. With Kiwi contestants from right across the Motu lining up to belt out their go-to songs.
We had people who would turn up no matter how old they were, no matter what size they were, no matter how high they were on the elixir of life, turning up and just wanting to sing. Right from the beginning, Māori television, now Whakaata Māori, did things differently.
Find a man for yourself!
Oh, wow.
Ask Your Auntie, another of those early shows.
To this day, I still say no other show that I've ever seen has been honouring Māori women to be smart, sassy and sexy.
But it had serious cultural chops too. It was the first broadcaster to make Anzac commemorations an all-day event. Supporters say, above all, it pushes the use of our Indigenous language. One of its 2 channels today for fluent Te Reo speakers.
We're part of a much larger movement that was created many, many years ago when Māori first said, no more, we want the right to be able to speak our language.
There have been lows as well. A chief executive who forged a CV was fired, and an award-winning kohanga reo investigation split Māoridom. Like others in the sector, Whakaata Māori faces an uncertain future as audiences move online. While the broadcaster has had a temporary top-up from the government in the last 2 budgets, there's no guarantee that'll last.
We currently have an annual total budget of just under 50 million. We're at risk of losing a quarter of that within 4 years' time.
We keep all budget discussions under wraps, but I would acknowledge that 20 years is a great achievement.
Now a time for celebrating the high notes. The broadcaster keeping Māori voices in the spotlight. Jacob Johnson, One News.
Karawe. All right, Hayley's here with sport now.